FM. Kiteshare Radio. Kiteshare Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kiteshare Radio.
Beaming across the counties of Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice, this is Kiteshare Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Kiteshare Radio, the radio with a difference.
It is 13 hours 38 in Guyana and right across the Eastern Caribbean. You're listening to us right here on Kiteshare Radio 99.1 FM in Demerara and Essequibo, 99.5 FM in the Berbice area, online at kitesurenewsonline.com, via our Facebook page, Kiteshare Radio, and of course one of our latest streaming platform, YouTube, Kiteshare Radio. It is the 11th day of June in the year 2020, and welcome down to today's edition of the COVID-19 and Elections Watch. Let me say good afternoon and welcome to Senior Journalist Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, dear Joshua Van Slightman, and a good day to Kevin Smith, two very important members of our team down at Kiteshare Radio here on Sapon Street. I want to say good afternoon to Yog. You're looking very good in blue. I'm not sure whether you should be wearing red or so, but blue is good. It's not maybe reflective of your mood today being blue. But we should be very happy today as normal. It's been a very hyper week for Leonard Gildarie. There's a reason for that. I think we come into the end there. I'm feeling very good. Maybe you're going to tell us something else. So right across Guyana, I want to say a good day to everybody and who joining us here on Kiteshare Radio, whether you're in Guyana or out of Guyana. I hope that you're having a splendid day as we are. So we're going to have some fun today. Yog Mahadeo has decided to put up in the last couple of weeks what he's eating and what he's not eating, and he's not sharing. So we have the people at Kiteshare News and across the country have some very serious problems with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and what he's been doing. So Yog, you got to stop that. You can't be teasing people and you can't be doing those kind of things. You and the family, you got to stay away from that. But let's get right into it. It's June the 11th, 2020, as was mentioned by Joshua. 101 days since March the 11th elections. This morning, there was a significant happenings in the court, the High Court. Contempt proceedings were withdrawn reportedly against claimant Mingo, Region 4, District 4, returning officer who would have found themselves in hot water over the last couple days, couple weeks, because of his role in the Region 4 results. And so, Yog, let's get straight into that. Let us talk. What is the significance of those withdrawal of the contempt proceedings against claimant Mingo? Does it have any bearings to what is happening or what should be happening in the next couple of days with regards to our declarations and the swearing of a president and the formation of a new government?
Well, Leonard put it this way, and good to see you. And I'm sorry if Anita has really peaked her baking skills and would have been teasing you and other people on Facebook with her baking skill, but I am only a beneficiary there and a very grateful one. And I would like to say thanks to my beautiful Anita for all that she's been doing. But Leonard, to come to your point here, look, the contempt proceedings have been withdrawn. And I want to put it in the following perspectives. The recount is finished. The recount is over and done with. The damage of the recount, the damage of the count, and the damage of Mingo having done what he did is an act completed. In other words, you cannot stop Mingo from continuing to do it. It's an act that is done. So having a contempt proceedings against him is nothing other than probably to show that he acted in bad faith with the law, which, don't forget, private criminal charges have been filed against both Mingo and Ms. Lawrence for that fraudulent declaration. So the court will certainly have to listen and relook at Mingo's application or non-application of the laws where his decision to use that spreadsheet was concerned, Leonard. So I don't see any big deal with it. I think it's just one of those things that happen in terms of that shouldn't stall the process of now moving ahead or the course moving ahead with the private criminal charges.
Absolutely, and thank you, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo. As always, very analytical and straight to the point. Yog, last evening there was this major show. If you missed it, you would have missed something in a very big way. That show in room 592 with yourself as host and myself. I think I was sitting on the sidelines there, and you became part of the sidelines too, with regards to what was happening between Sanjeev Dattadin, attorney at law Sanjeev Dattadin, who's a candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic, and of course on the other side Dr. Henry Jeffrey, former minister, and he's also a founder member of the New and United Guyana, and he would have been making a case. In a nutshell, what he is saying is that that the government should look at a national front, shared governance, and he would have gone on a number of areas, including those observation reports and how it should be handled. And he believed that there was significant fraud in it. And of course, Sanjeev Dattadin, on the other side, he would have argued otherwise. In a nutshell, did Henry Jeffrey made a good case with regards to what he wanted to say? Because I think a few minutes after he would have been on air, the ANOG, his party, would have come out and say that he did not, or he's not saying anything on behalf of the party, what the statements are not reflective of that party. And so we did ask him the question. He did not answer directly whether his statements are that, but however his party would have been taking note of this show that was ongoing and his statements, and they have made it very clear that they are not happy with what the coalition has been doing, and therefore they believe that GCOM has been compromised by rogue GCOM staffers. And so his statements would have come in conflict with that. Did he make a good case for what he was saying, Yog?
Well, just let me, if you don't mind, let me correct you with two things. One is that Dr. Jeffrey did say, he never said that there was fraud. He said there is allegation of fraud, which is the fact. There has been allegations of fraud. I don't know. A lot of people have joined this thing. It's becoming the talk. There is fraud. There is fraud. There's been no proof of fraud. There's allegation of fraud. So Dr. Jeffrey last night did say that the allegations of fraud. But what he also said that he believes that GCOM should investigate those allegations. And in the process of investigating, if it were to find those allegations to be proven, then it ought not to call or make a declaration. It probably should look towards having an interim government in place.
At this point in time, do you believe that GCOM has any contemplation on this? How do you read it based on what you're seeing as to the next play by GCOM? Are they going to be, do they have, because the big question that came to the table last evening, or the couple of questions was what is the authority of GCOM when it comes to this recount, when it comes to the law? What are some of the conclusions that could be drawn from the show last evening?
Well, at the end of the day, Dr. Jeffrey admitted that you cannot get away from the order. Let us put it in perspective. Dr. Jeffrey was presenting his arguments on basis of management. He is saying as a manager, as the management team in the process, GCOM being managers of the election or managers of the recount, they ought to take whatever accusations to be made and have a hearing and then decide. And Sanjeev was arguing, but management can only follow the law. And if the law prescribes management to act in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 way, then they have to go with law. In other words, GCOM cannot break the law in trying to become an arbiter in its own case. So those are some of the things that are must be put into perspective. The other thing that I think came out that was interesting, Leonard, is Dr. Jeffrey did say that, so yes, I admit I was part of rigging. It is interesting to note, and I wish to say this without, this is not being negative to Dr. Jeffrey or anybody. But the rigging attempts, the successful rigging of elections from 1964 through 1985, we need to ventilate those things. The younger people need to be educated as to how rigging took place, who rigged, and what is the backdrop, because it is behind the rigging that took place all those years that has now created a narrative of rigging now. And it's all, mind you, it's all allegations that is taking place now. There has not been any proof, but I'm sure that when we have your guests later on, we'll be talking a little bit more about it. But last night was certainly interesting, and you are right. You and I had to take the corner ropes, so to speak, and let the two gentlemen box it out in the center.
Yeah, it was a total slugfest. I think at one point in time, I think they were trying to drown out your voice and my voice, and I think especially your voice. But very quickly, in a few moments, we're going to be joined by two representatives of the coalition, and one of them would be Ganesh Mahipaul, and the other one would be Daniel Seeram. And both of them young candidates within the coalition, and they have their say with regards to these elections and what they would have been seeing and the way forward for the coalition. So we have some questions for them there, like so many other guests that we would have had in the last couple of weeks. Yog, the U.S. Embassy has issued a security alert. They're warning that there could be large crowds in the area, and then there's heightened police presence. They're seeing that, and they're warning their government personnel to stay away from it, and they're also advising them to continue monitoring the radio and the television to ensure that they remain safe. It is important that we continue paying attention to what is happening, the advisories from these people. It's an indication they probably would have their ears to the ground, seeing something, hearing something that we probably would not be hearing. So we have to pay attention to that. We have been hearing some rumors, but we don't want to alarm anybody right now. It's just that's just for news purposes at the moment. Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, within the last few hours, there was a statement, a question was posed to Ralph Gonsalves. And why is it important? Ralph Gonsalves is tipped to be the next chairperson in keeping with the rotation procedures that the CARICOM has with regards to the leaders, the regional leaders. So he's going to become the next chairperson of CARICOM. And he's saying, take your licks, ensure that we pay attention to the elections recount and the whatever comes out of it, and we adhere to that and respect it. Yog, you would have had chance to listen to Ralph Gonsalves. What are some of the conclusions there?
Well, what else can you conclude other than to repeat what he said? Take your licks like a man. I think Mr. Prime Minister Gonsalves' statement was very, very, very straightforward. He said the GCOM, in CARICOM's view, and remember CARICOM are observers in these elections. In CARICOM's view, GCOM has to declare the results and has to declare the presidency from the numbers garnered through these recount. We all know that. Who and why they're waiting for a Hail Mary is beyond anybody's comprehension at this stage. But certainly it is worrying that the outside people have to get involved in our internal matters to tell us, put your house in order. And that is probably very embarrassing and has to be embarrassing. And you know what? Instead of assessing the message, they have already started beating up the messenger.
Yes, we did see that. The don't come tell us anything, get your house in order. The United States, why are you telling us about elections when there would be allegations of fraud? We're right within your country as well. So we keep seeing that narrative being played out as well. Yog, yesterday too, important because we have to bring these things up. It's making the news. It is pertinent to what is transpiring in Guyana at the moment. You go to the front page of Kaichur News today, June the 11th, Thursday edition. U.S. Secretary of State calls for a quick, credible conclusion of elections recount. The main headline, probe and expel compromised faction in GCOM to restore public confidence. ANOC files complaint to chair. Then you go below that, protection of state assets among key issues in PPP meeting with Top Cop. And you recall that they had a meeting there yesterday, and they would have said that they're very concerned and they want the police to take a hand in ensuring that our state assets are key that the police help in that. And we would have seen here too an interesting ruling by the Caribbean Court of Justice, which would have had to do with the cement importation from Turkey, I think it is, by a company in Barbados. And that company, I think the government of Barbados went and raised the regional tax on them, and the people took them to court. They're saying that they should not have done that. The Caribbean Court of Justice basically give a ruling which would allow regional manufacturers to be more protected. So if you're a manufacturer in the country, the government could implement taxes. That is, in any case, what the CT tax is supposed to be. Put in taxes that if you're bringing in the same product from overseas, that your product is competitive in its very nature. So that is good news for the region. We have to pay attention that we have, I think it's a $4 billion import bill. Yog, I think it is that I was told, $4 billion import bill annually, food into the Caribbean, and this is a big market. If Guyanan places that produce food could be able to tap into these markets instead of we going and buying a lot of potatoes and things like that, we have things I think people would have been successfully growing, even strawberries here. So we could look into this and in a very concerted way capitalize on that. So in a very short while we're getting ready, I think our operators are getting ready to bring our guests on. Yog, let us move on. With regards to COVID-19, Yog, we cannot shy away from what has happened in the U.S. today. According to the news, has gone past 2 million cases in its 50 states of the United States of America. 2 million cases that they would have tested positive. There's 113,000 deaths, and they're projecting by September to touch the 200,000 mark. Here the problem that we have, why is it pertinent to us? The second state, the second country in the world that has the highest number of cases is a country called Brazil, right next door to us here, Yog. It's 772,000 cases. We would have had so far, I think it's over 20,000, 24,000, I'm thinking. I'm looking at here. So we have to pay attention to that. In the meantime, the Ministry of Education, we would have been debating over the last couple of days, Yog, over the issue where children should go back to school and their readiness to write the exams, whether it's grade 6, CAPE, or CSEC. And the Ministry of Education would have come out and say, in response to the Guyana Teachers Union, which was advising teachers to not go to school, but to continue teaching students via the internet and so on, Zoom and so. The Ministry of Education is saying that it would have met with GTU, there would have been some kind of agreement, and so they don't understand how this is happening right now. While it's appreciated that public officials should express their views on important issues such as the one under discussion, to say that consultations were not held with the GTU is inaccurate. The ministry's relation with the GTU is one that is important and highly valued. The Ministry of Education wishes to make it clear that the decision to reopen school for these important examinations were based on guidance, clearance, evidence, and science. So yoga, very important issues here that are being raised. This is an issue with regards to children returning to school for the exams, and we know it is just around the 11th to today's June the 11th, and in the very first week in July is where National Grade 6 students have been told that they have to write exams. They would have been not going to school since early March, when the country went into a partial lockdown and schools were closed and the borders were closed and the airport were closed. And so we are going to take Yog a 2 minutes break so we could welcome our guests on the program. And as soon as we're back, we get straight right into things. We have Daniel Seeram and Ganesh Mahipaul, two very young person representatives, candidates within the coalition. And they're here to tell us about the developments, what is happening with the coalition and with the elections. So we take a 2 minutes break, and when we come back, right back into the elections COVID-19 watch with Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo.
Stay in the know with Kaicho Radio. Join us daily, Monday to Friday at 13 hours 30 for COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Join us as they keep you updated on the latest news on elections 2020 and the COVID-19. COVID-19 and Elections Watch only on Kaicho Radio. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference. Hey kids, are you home and don't know what to do? Then Kaicho Radio has got you covered. Join us every day, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. for a special edition of Kids Zone. We will bring to you exciting facts and science, mammals, birds, sharks, you name it, we've got it. We've even got fun and craft activities for you to do right at home. Not forgetting our maths and English segments to keep you up top of the game. Listen to stories and poems read by fellow kids. And if you would like to be a part of this program, then have your parents contact us on 622-2222 or email us at kaichoradio@gmail.com. Kids Zone, only on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5 FM. The radio with a difference.
Unleash the truth in Room 592. Room 592 every Monday to Friday from 19 hours 30 to 20 hours 30 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist of Kaicho News, Leonard Gildarie. Room 592 on Kaicho Radio. The radio with a difference.
Hello radio fans, the Indian Mix is back. I encourage you to join yours truly, Joshua Van Slykeman, from 15 hours 30 to 16 hours 30 alongside DJ Chino for the Indian Mix Monday to Friday. The Indian Mix, playing selections with you in mind. The Indian Mix, only on Kaicho Radio. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference. Hey, I am Joshua inviting you to join me this and every Sunday from 16 hours to 19 hours for Sunday Grooves. Sunday Grooves is a program designed with you in mind, playing you music of today and yesteryears. So join me this and every Sunday from 16 hours. Sunday Grooves, only on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5 FM.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome once again to the special edition of Elections COVID-19 Watch. I am Leonard Gildarie with my co-host here, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. So we want to welcome you back. We head straight into two guests that we have here today, two young people within the coalition, the APNU+AFC coalition. One is Ganesh Mahipaul, and the other one is Daniel Seeram. Gentlemen, welcome to Kaicho Radio, and I hope that it has been a couple of good weeks for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Leonard and Dr. Yog. It's good to be here, and it's good to be on your program once again.
Thank you very much. And Daniel, it is a pleasure. Last time that I spoke with you, you were very busy with regards to I think it was a recount that was ongoing, and you would have made some statements. But let's get right into it. It's going to be a very tough couple of days. The country is waiting very patiently for the decisions of GCOM. At this point in time, there's a lot of accusations going back and forth. The coalition is saying that there is fraud. The opposition saying that you did not present evidence. I want to ask you straight, Mr. Mahipaul, where is the evidence?
Well, the evidence is right in the box. We were right there. Everybody was there. And we know exactly what is it that we found. I was there for 33 days. And I can tell you convincingly that what we found in the box lends to the word fraud. And it is very difficult for us to validate those votes, those ballot papers that we found in the boxes with the X. It is very difficult for us to say that it is valid on the basis that there are no checks and balances. There are no proof that those ballot papers were supposed to be there. So I think that is one powerful example of exactly what is the proof. Notwithstanding that, we also, as a coalition, we submitted death certificates for persons that allegedly voted. And we also submitted a list of persons that have migrated, were not in the jurisdiction on or before March 2nd. And the Commissioner of Police would have substantiated our argument by submitting to GCOM a confirmed list of persons that indeed traveled and did not return.
Absolutely. And so there were a list that was submitted to the police from GCOM, 172 names of people who were believed to be overseas, and then media houses would have come out and say, look, we have at least 30-something confirmed in Guyana. So that brings into question the list that would have been compiled by the coalition as part of the observations. How do you tell the Guyanese people that the observations that you have should be believed?
Leonard, the first point I want to make is that even if you want to put aside that list, and even if you want to put aside the persons that are dead who purportedly voted, the fact remains that when we examined those boxes, the documents that are supposed to be there to validate the ballot papers, that are supposed to be there to ensure and give credence to the ballot papers, were not there. That alone is an anomaly, that alone is irregularity, that alone is a fraud, because they are statutory documents that are supposed to validate the votes, and we did not have that. And on that basis, we cannot proceed to say that we had a credible elections on March 2nd, because the credibility of the election really will depend on you validating your X, validating the fact that, you know what, one person is entitled to one vote. Many boxes we cannot put that to.
Some people would argue that every elections all across the world, there is going to be some degree of mistakes. There is going to be some staffers who genuinely not do what they were supposed to have done. Have you been able to determine those mistakes or not being in the box of those documents? Were you able to determine what percentage of the total votes that they would represent?
Well, I can't speak to the percentage. Daniel is one who plays with numbers, so he will be better able to say that. But I do know that the numbers, it was not any small percentage. It was not any small number, because the boxes that were affected were large numbers.
And you're saying, before I move over to you, Daniel, you're saying that these are enough to call the elections not credible?
not only am I saying that they're enough to call the election not credible, the fact of the matter is that even my position, and this is my personal position, even if you have one person that is not supposed to have voted and they voted, that alone for me deems the entire process not credible.
So how?
Because you're
okay.
supposed to have a system in place where checks and balances can balance out. We're talking about the future of our country. We are talking about a process that gives power to a political party. We're talking about the will of the people being represented. And we may find one, but we don't know how many more there are. That is why we should have no room to have any.
So you're saying, just before we move over to Daniel, you're saying that any mistakes or anything would be enough to invalidate an entire election?
Well, it depends on what we define as mistake, because I would not categorize those irregularities as mistake. A mistake is, for example, if you forgot to, as something minor that doesn't have an impact. But those were not mistakes. You cannot go through a lengthy period, went through a training process by GCOM, facilitated by GCOM, taxpayers' monies were paid for you to go through a lengthy process and commit those kind of acts and want me to think that it's mistake. It's not a mistake. Statutory documents were missing from the ballot boxes. Documents that are supposed to reconcile with the votes cast. You cannot tell me that you did not put in unused ballot papers into the ballot box and want me to believe that that's a mistake. You forgot to put the counterfoils of the used ballot papers and want me to accept that as a mistake. You cannot tell me that you did not put in the official list of electors, which is supposed to be marked, and you want me to accept that as a mistake. You cannot tell me that there is 21 oaths of identity inside the poll book, of which 10 are signed and 11 unsigned, and want me to accept that as a mistake. I don't think it's a mistake. It's bigger than that by far.
And this is predominantly for Region 4, District 4?
Predominantly for District 4, yes, but we have to also take into account that District 4 has the largest voting population, but it was found in other regions also.
Daniel, you're the figures guy here. Let's ask you, what percentage of the total votes would you say that these anomalies would have been coming up?
Now, I won't go into exactly saying percentage.
Yes.
I'll start it from Region 1 and then we move through, so you get a grasp of detailed information here. Now, we would have begun in Region 1 and we would have noted the statutory documents being missing, but more importantly, we would have noted that the security features on the boxes, and this is in commencement of going through these boxes, would have not been there or would have been broken. As we would have moved from Region 1 going to Region 7, 8, and 9, we would have found that a great number of persons would have voted by oaths of identity, certificates of employment, and none of these forms would have been found in the box, or any supporting documents to these effect would have been found in the box to support anything that these persons were actually there to vote. The percentage of these would have added up, along with the migratory voters and the deceased, to just over 6,000, going to about 7,000 votes. When you would have actually looked at how these boxes were affected, you would have seen them go affecting a total number of votes to thereabouts over 80,000 votes. Because if you find that you have votes that were contaminated in boxes, then we don't know exactly to what extent. But we found them, we produced the evidence, and we sent them off. When we went around to the other regions, and we did our tabulations, and we found the evidence. As soon as we found them, we flagged them, we took the evidence, and as soon as GCOM asked for the evidence, we sent them over in a timely manner. Now, everybody spoke about Region 4. What is key about Region 4 is that when we arrived at the East Coast, we arrived at the epicenter of fraud. Now, Leonard, we didn't start off by saying the word fraud. The only person that started off saying the word fraud was the opposition. I remember Anand saying fraud is fraud, and it's going around the internet. There's no such thing as little fraud. There's no such thing as big fraud. Fraud is fraud. Now, when we arrived at the East Coast, we first saw the first East Coast boxes opening last Thursday. We noted that boxes could not be validated because of want of missing key statutory documents. Now, this is not something that the coalition party said. This is not anything that any party or observer said. This is GCOM staff putting in those observation reports cannot be validated for want of statutory documents. We noted about 2 or 3 on Thursday afternoon, and we sought guidance on them. And then by 12 p.m. on Friday, we noted the number was at 21 boxes. So I made a formal objection to these boxes on Friday afternoon, in which we ceased tabulating them, but the ones that were tabulated already were left in the system. On Saturday, these numbers grew to 29 boxes. The commission met on the same Saturday. An investigation into the matter concerning this particular issue was initiated via the chief elections officer, and he would have been given a task by the commission to see what is going on in this, and you would have read about the issues with the DROs and the POs. I can't speak to it because that investigation, as to my knowledge, currently has not been concluded because us, the public, and any other stakeholder has not been made aware of any decision made in that investigation. However, what I can tell you is that the commission met on Sunday last, and they made a decision to go ahead and tabulate all boxes. Needless to say that that investigation was not completed. In terms of figure, I can tell you that at completion of Sunday last, we were at 41 boxes which had the same issue on the East Coast. And those boxes would have affected thereabout just over 10,000 votes. Now, if you want to look at the numerical factor in this entire elections, if you look at regions 7, 8, and 9, how they were won, none of those regions were won by 10,000 votes. So you can judge that the weighting of 10,000 votes just on the East Coast could spin in elections any day. And then this is just for boxes that we were flagged because they were not validated. And then we had other boxes that had grave other issues in other regions. In Region 5, we had a similar box with the same issue. I remember it particularly because it was box 5006, in which when it came to the workstation, Ganesh, you remember that box, right?
That was exactly the first box that I remember.
The box, it was a very notorious box because it literally came to the workstation with no documents in it and just ballots. That box was flagged, that box was parked briefly, and then we were told that these boxes would be counted. Now, Leonard, if we're going to speak to the level where we are right now, I can tell you the graduations. We started with small issues of irregularities. They graduated to statistical anomalies. Then they graduated to grave discrepancies. And now we have the final graduation at the end of this is systematic fraud. And these would have affected tens of thousands of votes that would have now been cast under the phrase invalidated for want of statutory documents and for want of other issues that GCOM would have put out in their gazetted order. Now, everybody asks that, we are making claims. We are not making claims. These are things that we, along with any other opposition political party, were there that saw it. Check the observation report. They signed to it also. And these are claims that not only happened to our parties, but happened to members of their parties as well, particularly in Ogle. We had a box in which many of the opposition, I think that there are about 100 or so votes, were 100. Well, Ganesh, you could remember the box, but there are about 100 votes were rejected. All of them would have voted for the PPP. And not one objection was raised. Not one issue was brought to the commission to find out what happened to those disenfranchised voters. Now, we try to look at this thing holistically, and this is where we're at currently. If the weight of these missing statutory documents falls directly to the credibility of those ballots, then that directly weights questions on the entire credibility of this electoral process in front of us. And this is just one aspect of electoral fraud. And we have the other issues still to deal with. So the question answers itself, Leonard.
I wanted, before I bring in my co-host here, Yog Mahadeo, and I would love answers from the two of you. Ganesh, how does the order that made the recount possible address the issue of observations or complaints raised by stakeholders within the recount?
Well, Leonard, I'm no lawyer. I've said that before on your program. I'm no lawyer, so I depend solely on my own little understanding of what really is to be expected. And my understanding is that we were not just going into a numerical count, one for me, one for you. What I know is that we were going to reconcile, we were going to ensure that the validity of these votes are protected, we were going to ensure that there is a proper accountability for the votes that were cast, and that is what I expected. We started off, of course, with little minor glitches, as Daniel rightfully said, but as we proceeded, it was fraud, simply fraud, because as I said, if we are looking for accountability, transparency, and credibility, then we are supposed to have that in place to ensure that these votes are what they're supposed to be, and they're supposed to reflect the will of the Guyanese people. I do not think elections 2020, the votes that were cast, they reflect the will of the Guyanese people. I don't believe in those numbers because of what I saw. And this is not me coming from the outside saying to you that I am going with any narrative or I'm taking a position from a standpoint. I was there. I was there for 33 days. I was there from 8 a.m. in the morning, and we went sometimes as far as 7 o'clock in the evening. I spent only 45 minutes lunch break, and then we went back into the station and we started again. This is a first-hand knowledge that I'm presenting to you. And I am telling you that if we cannot account for the votes, then we cannot put the word credibility to it. And it is unfortunate that we have found ourselves in this position. But the recount process, in my humble view, is good for Guyana, because what it does is that it allows GCOM to now revisit the system and to fix the problem, so that going forward, a future generation and even ours coming to other elections, we would not be faced with this travesty.
Absolutely. And is it you have the same view that the observation reports have been catered for in the recount?
Yes, the observation report is clearly catered for in the recount, because I won't quote the direct gazetted order, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a part of it which states that the CEO will give a summary of that observation report in his report that he will hand over to the Commission.
And this is an agreement, if I may, Daniel, this is an agreement between the two major political parties. I'm assuming the subsets of the PPP, they were a part of it too. But I do know that the People's Progressive Party and the APNU+AFC, they agreed for this gazetted order. The commissioners that represent the opposition and the coalition, they had a look at it before it was gazetted. So it is not a question of whether they were against it. They agreed to this, and it's quite unfortunate that we have a situation where at the end of stage one, a political party is going hullabaloo, we won. But there are 4 stages. We are now in stage 2, which is probably the important stage, because stage
Leonard,
1
can I
was...
step in?
Yes, go ahead, Yog. I think
Before we go further, Mr. Mahipaul, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I trust you're doing well also.
Very well, thank you. You said just now that you don't believe that the votes reflect the will of the Guyanese people. What is the will of the Guyanese people, sir? Or what do you believe to be the will of the Guyanese people?
Well, first of all, Yog, every individual is entitled to a vote. And you have...
Sir, what is the will of the Guyanese people? I know people are entitled to vote and all that. You said that the votes you counted and recounted, you don't think they reflect the will of the Guyanese people. What do you think is the will of the Guyanese people?
And I am saying to you, my brother, that when we did the count, we found that there were persons who were not supposed, they were ballot papers. that did not go to any individual that is from an official list of electors.
What is the will of the Guyanese people?
Their vote is going to reflect the will of the Guyanese people. Their vote will reflect...
Those votes you recounted don't reflect the will of the Guyanese people.
I am saying no on the basis that...
Okay, hold. So if the count shows so much for APNU+AFC and so much for PPPC, it does not reflect the will of the Guyanese people. That's what you're saying.
No, but Yog, but you have to allow me. You cannot want to give me to put words in my mouth.
Dissecting it from what you said.
Let me explain it to you more in depth so you can understand clearly. I am saying to you there were cases where the official list of electors have a certain amount of number. Let's assume it had 400.
Sir,
but
Ganesh,
you found... No, let me finish. No, you don't know it.
All of that.
No, I'm saying no, you don't know it.
We know all of that. I allowed you to speak. We know all of that. We know the electoral process. I just asked you a simple question, whether you believe and whether you confirm that the will of the Guyanese people were not reflected, and you confirm that. So I want to ask you some more questions.
Mm-hmm.
In both of your presentations, you said that you use words interchangeably. You use words, and I noted it, you use words like allegation, you use words like irregularities, and you use words of fraud. Which one is it?
I'll take this question. First of all, let's go back to the question you had about the will of the Guyanese people. The will of the Guyanese people is to choose a government of their choosing. And this is not coming out of the numbers that are purported out of this recount. It is not purported out of the numbers out of this recount because it is tattered in systematic fraud. Now, if you ask me the question of irregularities and so, that is what commenced this recount process. After careful observation over the many days, Ganesh spent 33 days in there. I spent 35 days because we had 2 extra days for tabulation.
All I'm asking you, my
well,
brother,
you have to listen if you're asking, because I'm going to tell you. It started out as irregularities, then they morphed into discrepancies. And then when we finally did our analyses on it, we could clearly see statistical anomalies coming out of them, because you can clearly see how they were going about.
Is it anomalies or fraud?
It graduated in the end to systematic fraud, sir. Because you're trying to choose that they're different things. But the end state,
I'm asking you
whether
the final position is that it's fraud or it was irregularity. Which one is it?
The end state is systematic fraud. You have not been listening to us, man.
Thank you.
I've stated this before. I don't know why you were attacking Ganesh just now.
I am not attacking Ganesh. Ganesh, I
clearly stated this just now. You said you were writing down. You were only writing down what Ganesh was saying, but you didn't write down what I was stating.
Because you stated I have to sit by and accept it. No way.
No. Because
not because you stated I have to accept it.
You must sit back.
If you state something, I am a taxpayer. I am a voter. I have right to question you.
Yeah, you have a right to question, but you have a right to listen carefully also.
You have been speaking for the past half an hour. I listened.
Yeah, but you are attacking him for something that was already dealt with before, which we could have used that time to ask a proper question.
Oh, so the question is improper? Are you saying the question I ask is improper?
Already. The question was dealt with already. I told you it started out as irregularities. It moved from irregularities to being statistical anomalies. It moved, and then it finally graduated to systematic fraud. What we have in front of us is electoral fraud. This was dealt with.
So to answer your question, Yog, we're dealing with systematic fraud.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Mahipaul, a few weeks ago, you said to reporters that the information you got were hearsay.
No, I never said that. That was
You want me to find the clip? You said that it was hearsay. You said that you admit it was based on hearsay.
Listen, Yog, it was twisted. At the end of the day, what I said is that we were doing field work, and from field work we gathered information pertaining to persons who are dead and who would have migrated. The reporter said, so you're saying your argument is based on hearsay. I said, okay, if you want to say hearsay, I wouldn't rule out hearsay. But the point is, we have credible information to justify.
But let me ask you this.
No, let me finish. We have credible information to justify that persons who migrated and were not in the country on or before March 2nd, they happen to have voted. And that was the essence of that message. But I didn't expect anything better from Guyana Times.
And that is not Guyana Times. I listened to you myself.
No, I'm saying to you, I'm saying the reporter was from Guyana Times that twisted the story.
Sir, I'm not going to call a reporter's name. Look, I'm asking you some questions which I believe viewers and listeners are sending in and want to know the information. So you just said that you have hard evidence. You have evidence to confirm the accusations of irregularity, to confirm that there is systemic fraud. Yes, no?
Yes.
And those evidence would have related to people being overseas and being impersonated here.
The evidence lie in the ballot boxes. It is in the ballot boxes where there is confirmed systemic fraud. And it has to do with the fact that there cannot be any reconciliation of the votes cast on March 2nd, 2020 in multiple boxes. I hear Daniel talk about 41, I think, in
Ganesh, I want to talk about the migrant voters that you spoke about, the people being overseas and voted.
Yog,
I just want us to understand. I just want us to understand your position in terms of if you are saying somebody's overseas and somebody impersonated them here, that you have such evidence.
But
yes or no?
We presented the names with the serial numbers. We called the serial numbers. We objected to them. We presented the list to the Guyana Elections Commission. They sought the information from the Chief Immigration Officer. They got a response. There are many more lists that went, and they're awaiting answers, I'm guessing. But the point to note is that we maintain migrants who were not in the country on or before March 2nd happened to have cast a ballot because it was shown on the pink list, the official list of electors. Their names were ticked off. I noticed Daniel wants to have a say too.
But you said, Daniel, I wanna come to you on this one because you would have said, Ganesh, that you presented a list of names to the commission. That's not evidence. That's an allegation, right? I just want to get our terminology right. However, hold on. Daniel, I want to ask you a question because I need to know.
Sure.
I don't know whether it was you or Ganesh said earlier that, any percentage, I think Ganesh said that even if there's one flawed vote, it throws the entire election into a question of whether it was credible or not.
I did say that is my opinion, right?
Okay. Daniel, what's your position on that?
My position on it currently is that I already found over 10,000 votes that cannot be validated. And 10,000 votes is more than enough to spin an elections. So it doesn't have to do with one vote or two votes or three votes. Not 5,000 votes, not 7,000 votes. I'm already over 10,000 votes. If you ask me how many ballot boxes, it's not one ballot box, it's not 10 ballot boxes, it's not 15, it's not 40, it's over 41 now. So if you want that weighting.
10,000 votes, if the 10,000 votes is overthrowing an election, as you say, 172 names came back from the Commissioner of Police, of which the newspaper alone showed that 35 was totally incorrect, 35 wrong. So that throws out the whole list also from the Immigration Department.
No, but hold on.
This percentage work there and this percentage doesn't work here.
But you can't say that the newspaper threw out 35%. The newspaper isn't an authority to throw out that thing. The only authority to deem a person that was in the country at the time would have been the police. So for you to state...
Not the person themselves?
No, if that person was in the country and they have their requisite immigration records, they can show up at any police station, present their passports with their stamp out and their stamp of return. Because what you're doing right now is that you're questioning the Guyana Police Force's immigration system and you're questioning the officers of the Ghanaian police force, the immigration section, being able to competently carry out their duties. So if that system that they have in place there is flawed in any way, then those people need to come forward, and a formal investigation into immigration fraud now needs to be dealt with. Because if you have 35 persons, please send the list to the Commissioner of Police, let them all line up at Ivleri with their passports in hand, with the stamps that they left the country on X date, and with the stamp that they returned to the country on X date. And let's fix that process also while we're at it.
So, no, but the question is, why should these people leave their homes if a false allegation has been made about them? Why they have to go prove themselves?
Well, if they don't want to leave their home to deal with a false allegation, that is their choice.
Let me finish.
But the Guyana Police Force cannot come under disrepute for persons who are sitting in their home that don't want to come and clear the issue. If you want to sit in your home and not come out to clear the issue, then that's your decision.
About Mr. Thomas. And Mr. Thomas is there. Why he got to come prove you wrong? You made the allegation.
No, we didn't make an allegation. A list was sent to the Commissioner of Police. It was sent to the Chief Immigration Officer for persons who were in the country on or before the 2nd of March. If your name was on that list and it came back that it was deemed that you are not in the country on or before the 2nd of March, and you choose to stay home now and not come forward and have the matter dealt with, that is your decision. But it is up to the Guyana Police Force's Immigration Department record, which is the only credible source to deem who left the country legally and returned to the country legally. So, Mr. Mahadeo, I hear what you're saying, but if you want credible results for the immigration process, then the people need to come forward and deal with it. Otherwise, another day can stay home and be well.
But Yog, if I may add,
me at all. Yes, Ganesh, you were saying?
I'm listening to what Daniel just said and listening to what you were saying, I am beginning to ask myself, the newspapers and the other media houses that tried to say that the 35 persons were here, basically just listened to what they said and did not see. I can't recall seeing that the persons would have showed their passport.
That is terrible.
I said I don't recall seeing their passport document to say that they never left or they left and they came back. I can't recall seeing that. So I was wondering, on the basis of what Daniel was saying and what you were asking, if the same happened.
Ganesh, Harman, in his letter to the GCOM, did not ask. He said categorically, these people were out of the country. The chairman of GCOM put it to a test and found that test. They found a letter to have failed the test.
No, they found 172 names.
That has failed the test. That has failed the test.
Who determines that test was failed? You?
Out of 172 names.
Who determines the test was failed?
Daniel, who determined the test was factual?
Yog, there is
but you're questioning the Guyana Police Force right now.
Yog,
you're
testing out the credibility. You're questioning
the statutory body. You are questioning a statutory body, and I have a right to question the police
because we
for
have the
giving
evidence.
false information.
But no, you are basing this argument on your 35. What happened to the 172 that voted?
So you are basing your argument on 8. What happened to 400,000?
What happened to the 172 that voted?
You are basing your argument on 8. What happened to 400,000?
You obviously we can't sway you any other way because you're leaning strong to one side. So let's move on.
I'm not leaning to a side. Daniel, you guys were hugging the same Yog Mahadeo in 2014 and 2015 when you asked me to be on your list.
Nothing is
so
wrong.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, but nothing is wrong if somebody else is hugging you now.
In this country, so stop that.
But nothing is wrong if somebody else is hugging you now.
I have another question for you both.
Yog, you heard what I said?
Mr. Mahipaul, are you a paid public servant presently?
I am a contract worker.
Are you currently under any contract with the government of Guyana?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So you're being paid presently by people like me who are the taxpayers in this country. Mr. Daniel, are you a paid public servant presently?
Nope. I am not.
So you are just operating here. Are you appearing here as a member of the coalition or the government?
I'm appearing here a member of the coalition. I don't work for the government.
Okay, thank you. So I want to ask you something else now. You both said that of the 6,000 votes in Region 2, Daniel, I think you pointed to 6,000, between 6,000 to 7,000 votes in Region 2. You then went on to say that a total of 80,000 votes is in question. And then you declared Region 4 to be the epicenter of fraud. Gentlemen, what is your opinion of Mr. Mingo's declaration of March 13th?
Mr. Mingo's declaration on March 13th. Mr. Mingo was fed the information that he was given from his polling office, from his presiding officers, in which he put into his spreadsheet at that time. Whatever declarations Mr. Mingo made that time was legal declarations that was made then. Persons would have come forward and said what they had to say, alleging that his declaration had its issues. And at this point in time, we are still awaiting a report to state if it has issues or not.
And if I may, I dealt with region number 3, Essequibo Islands, West Demerara. So I do not know until we went into the boxes what is there, but Mingo's declaration, and so I cannot speak on that. But what I want to say, however, allow me to say what I want to say. I want to say that had it not been for Mingo, we would not have found all of this that we found at the recount. So I welcome the recount. The recount is a process that was done, and it was done to the best of our ability, and we need to fix the system. The system is broken, and there's no question about that.
Ganesh, Mr. Mingo made a declaration of approximately 19,000 votes that your recount has shown never existed. Never existed at all. At all. Not in the boxes, nowhere. I am asking your opinion of Mr. Mingo's declaration that was co-signed by your party's chairman, I believe she is, Miss Lawrence. Is that declaration fraudulent or not?
As my comrade would have said, Daniel, Mingo's declaration was made from information that he received.
Sir, is it fraudulent after having seen the recount numbers or not?
I wouldn't try to say whether Mingo's declaration was fraudulent or not, because we can also look at the flip side to that and go to the recount and say whether the recount figures show that it's fraud or not.
But you are asking us to accept your argument that the recount is flawed. I am asking you about the precedent.
Yog, we cannot be selective when we are dealing with principle. The fact of the matter is...
You are asking us to accept your argument that the recount has shown these elections to be fraudulent.
And that is because we have moved from step 1 to step 2.
I am asking...
The declaration that was made... Listen, the fact of the matter is that there were declarations that were made at the regional level. Those declarations, political parties said that to themselves that they don't like it. It wasn't good, blah, 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 blah. We moved to step 2.
Are you distancing yourself from Mingo's declaration or not?
No, listen to me. We moved from there. The president of the country, it was President Granger who said that we are going to a recount. We are in the recount process, and we have found X, Y, and Z. And I'm saying to you...
Mr. Mahipaul, I am asking you these questions for a special purpose, for a special reason. Are you embracing or distancing yourself, you and Daniel, from Mingo's declaration? It's a simple question.
And my answer to that is that I am dealing with the recount and what came out of the recount. I am not going to associate myself with anything to do with Mingo and its declaration on the basis of me not being a worker in the Region 4 elections.
You are your party representative.
I can speak confidently for Essequibo Islands, West Demerara, and those figures. And I can speak about what is in the boxes for the Essequibo Islands, West Demerara, the 355 boxes. When we turned to Region 4...
Daniel, will you embrace or distance yourself from Mingo's declaration?
Whoever has an issue with the Mingo numbers, and if they bring up the issue of fraud with the Mingo's numbers, those people have to come forward now and provide the evidence to Mingo's numbers. Because thus far, we go back to your tune that you were singing just. So these are allegations. And if you have allegations, you bring forward your evidence. Now we're
Thank
at a
you,
point
but-
here. We're at a point here whereby we're at the second part of the recount process. Now, our party has called out fraud, systematic fraud, throughout the entire Guyana for this elections process. Another party called out fraud for one other aspect. Now, calling out fraud is one thing. Presenting your evidence to substantiate that fraud occur is a different thing. So, just like the people them that you have, just like the 35 people that you have that are at home saying that they were in the country to vote,
yourself.
right?
You
Just like the
presented the
35,
evidence
just like the
yourself.
35 people that you have sitting at home that don't want to come forward with their passport to say that they were in the country. It's the same thing like the people them who are alleging
Daniel.
that Mingo's numbers have issues.
Just
Come
still not
forward
answering
and
my
let the
question.
Guyanese people know
Daniel.
that and show your evidence so that we can have a transparent and credible
All right.
process.
Let me
This is
show
not
you my
something
evidence.
just to show that, hey, this number wrong or this
show
number.
you my evidence.
Bring it,
Let
because
me
on
show
the
you
East
my
Coast that we're
evidence.
finding right now is that the POs said that the DROs tell them one thing, and then
Let
this
me
one
show
say
you
one
my
thing.
evidence.
All what
Let
you're,
me show
all
you
what
my
you are
evidence.
saying and you're adding to right now is that fraud took place during the 2020 general and regional election. That's all you're saying right now. All
Fraud
you're
took
saying right
place
now
by
is the
your
same thing.
party.
All you're saying right now is that the same thing that we're saying, that these elections have a
not
great
at
question
all.
on their credibility.
Not
Yes,
at
that's
all.
what you're saying. Because if you're
Not
going to
at all.
identify fraud, then it's fraud throughout
let-
the elections and not fraud in one
let me
part of
show
the
you.
election. Because we pointed out a number of fraud. Over 10,000 votes in fraud for the East Coast and over 6,000 to 7,000 frauds in the other part of the country for you migrant people that you got 35 of them. Right?
And the
So if you're
evidence
going to
is in the
listen to
box.
fraud, you're going to listen to fraud holistically. One stakeholder said there's a fraud in this number, the next stakeholder said that there's a fraud in this number, and another stakeholder saying there's another fraud in this number. Now you bring your evidence and you don't sit down there and dictate which one is not fraud and which one is fraud. That is not your decision.
And
Mr.
our
Mahadeo.
pronouncement
Your
lies-
decision right now
the evidence
is to be
lie in the
transparent.
box.
All of your questions that
Mr.
you're asking
Mr. Daniel.
is leading towards one side
Leonard,
alone.
can I get a
And
word in,
can't-
please?
I can't have you trying to stifle us with this mingo bingo nonsense that you're purporting.
That's
Y'all
your
deal-
mingo bingo.
Y'all deal
He
with
is
the
your
fraud
man.
boxes. Y'all deal with the
He is
epicenter
your
of
man.
fraud.
All right,
Y'all deal with
the boss man is gonna step in here right now. I'm the boss right now, and so Yog, you keep it down there, gentlemen. We have a drink after this. All right, Yog, you come on, and then or Ganesh, you first. Then Daniel, and then you. And
I was saying that you have to look at this from a principal perspective. When the first declaration was made for the Region 4, you had one position that was taken by a political party that caused us to go into a recount stage. Now at the recount stage, you have another political party that is calling it for what it is. And as much as I see Yog wanting to go down the road of Mingo, Bingo, Wingo, whoever it is, the fact of the matter remains that you cannot be selective in your principles. It is there before us that we have a situation where there is systemic fraud in the ballot boxes. It is before our eyes. We have happened to have seen it, and we have to now deal with our process. I will prefer, rather than for us to go back and forth on Mingo and back and forth on this whole thing, we know what is it that we saw in the recount. We know what is it that the recount has, and I'm asking that we have a civil discourse on how we move forward as a country. I will prefer that.
Daniel.
Whatever is brought forward through this recount process was transparent for all to see. It's not only that we were counting votes, we were accounting for votes in this recount process. What we would have found, Ganesh, in this recount process is a lot of shortfalls that would have happened during the general and regional elections of
Leonard,
2020.
I'm supposed to respond to Mr. Ganesh Mahipaul.
You'd have your say. Just one moment, Yog.
Right? In this recount process, even the smaller parties would have went out and spoke to the systematic fraud that we brought out in these elections. They went out, they acknowledged them. They didn't acknowledge them by saying that GCOM is to go and investigate them immediately, but they did acknowledge that they happened. And we have the numerical value that they affected in these elections. Now, this isn't a political issue that we're dealing with here right now, Leonard. This is an issue of right and wrong. The elections have a great volume of questions surrounding its credibility. If you're going to write on the observation reports, as GCOM staff did, and say that a ballot box cannot be validated, then how could you count the ballots coming out of those boxes? Do you know what it is to open a ballot box and all you're finding is ballot papers in it, and you don't know who would have voted in it, how many people actually turn up to vote in it, no counterfoils, no OLE, no mark list, no tick list. It just speaks volumes as to what really happens in an elections in Guyana. Because we can't say that these are things that would have happened only this year in elections, but these are things that would have been recorded this year in election. What we did here, Leonard, is history. Myself, Ganesh, yourself, everyone here is a part of it. You reported on it. Yog is a part of it. Ganesh was a counting agent. I was a tabulation agent. All of my colleagues from the various political parties and my political party were a part of it. And all it showed us is that we have a very flawed system here when it comes to electoral management in Guyana. And I say this on the basis that we were there every day for 33 plus days. And we saw it every morning that we went into the Artichon Conference Center. And every night while we were leaving there,
Leonard,
we were so surprised. We were so surprised to hear it, to see what was going on there. And I will say it again, the will of the Guyanese people have been threatened through these elections process.
Over to you, Yog.
Listen, I asked these two gentlemen a specific question. They're running far away from Mingo and they're calling Mr. Mingo Bingo. Look, the truth is, Daniel himself said that somebody within GCOM gave Mingo those numbers. Let the world know APNU+AFC agents signed to those numbers. If somebody within GCOM gave Mr. Mingo those numbers, it means GCOM is the issue. GCOM has a problem according to what they're saying. The entire process and the entire recount has shown that there are problems in GCOM. There is not a soul that does not accept there are problems within GCOM. But to now be forced to say, well, if you can't accept your views, something is wrong with you. If you can't accept our views, then you shouldn't be speaking. That is absolute trash. I'll tell you what else. Everything that has gone to GCOM is an allegation. It has to be proved. I don't know why these two educated gentlemen are going to sit here and say it is fraud. It has to be proved. GCOM, the courts will have to declare whether it is fraud or not. They can't, the PPP can't, and these two parties are singing and feeding this Kool-Aid to everybody, and everybody's drinking it without thinking of the logic. And the words are shallow, very shallow. Mr. Mahipaul himself said just now, and I have this soundbite right now. He said that he doesn't want to be associated with anything. He doesn't want to talk about anything to do with Mingo. They're running so far away from Mingo, yet they're saying, had Mingo declaration been accepted, they would have all continued to feed off the taxpayers in this country. And that is unacceptable. You can't want to enjoy a stolen fruit on one hand, and when the fruit is not going your way, you say, well, it's stolen and nobody should enjoy it. That cannot be acceptable. My question to these two gentlemen, if GCOM, if you want, both of you want GCOM to nullify these elections, who is going to rule Guyana if GCOM nullify these elections?
I don't know if you want to go first, Daniel.
Well, basically, all I just heard Yog just say is basically he is comfortable with GCOM doing
Answer my
malpractice.
question. You had your
You
say.
are comfortable
I had
with
my
GCOM
say.
doing
Answer my
malpractice
question.
and walking past it. Well, this is not the type of people that we are, Yog. We will not see injustice
We know what people you are.
wrong things happen and just leave it alone. Because this is what you want to do. You want to not deal with the process.
Alone.
You want to
let Mingo
you do not want to deal with the process. You are the type of people you walk around and want a better world, but not want to do anything to help the world. This is just what you have just shown us here. You said it for yourself in the beginning just now.
Who making the world better, not you pontificating over us and tell us we have to accept Mingo.
You just said that
Where
GCOM
is
has
your
its flaws and
SOPs?
whatever. And then
Where are your SOPs?
that leave the flaws alone.
I'm going to step in here again as the judge here again. We have a request here from Mr. Sanjeev Datadin. The table is yours, gentlemen. He wants to get in on the program. It's up to you guys. I put it to you. Do you guys agree or disagree? Approve? Disapprove?
We don't approve at this point in time.
Thank you very much. So there you have it. I want to move on from this. Gentlemen, there is going to be next week, the Guyana Elections Commission is going to be dealing with some issues. That is the report.
Hold on. Are you muzzling Sanjeev Datadin?
The gentleman says that we've invited, they asked to come on to the program. They did not agree to anybody else being here. If somebody is coming in, I think I should give them the respect by asking them if they would agree to that.
Well, I did not know that at the top of this program. And you know what? I cannot accept a one-sided argument. If there are other people who are part of the recount, they need to come in and either verify or rubbish whatever argument. I wasn't there. If Ganesh is saying, or if Daniel is saying there are certain things happening there, that's their side. We need to hear from everybody who's there.
No, but what we can do, you can invite Mr. Datadin at a separate program, and then you can re-invite us for us to be here together.
But then what would happen? We'd get into the same. verbiage. I am going to repeat what you said there, and I'm going to repeat what he said from there. Let's face it out.
No, I said to you that you have asked us for our views. We're here to give you our views. Now, if Mr. Datadin has some views, he can give it on another program when he will be invited. And then you, as the host of the program alongside Leonard, you can bring all of us together at another forum. But for now, we are giving you our position. But I want to add to that, Leonard, that I didn't get to put an answer to Yog's question going forward. I think it is important for us as Guyanese to recognize that we are in a situation where we need to fix our electoral system. This is not about the APNU+AFC or the People's Progressive Party. It is simply about us moving forward as a country. We had the first set of declarations where one side cried fraud. Now we have the recount where another side is crying fraud. And we have to recognize and see the bigger picture, which calls for us to fix our electoral problem. Going into those ballot boxes, we really found stuff that we were not supposed to find. And therefore, that is confirmation that there is need for us to revisit the system. It is documented on the observation report, and I'm sure even the CARICOM observers, they were shocked to see what we found. And all I'm asking for is that as a commission, GCOM, and we need to fix the system so that we
my question is very simple.
So that we can have a proper election where we can elect the people of our choice.
Who? My question is very simple. Do you want GCOM to nullify these elections? And if yes, who must run the country while GCOM nullify the elections?
It is my opinion that the doctrine of necessity would step in, and the government of the day will remain in place.
Doctrine of necessity is you said you are not a liar, so let's
No, but I'm saying that it's my opinion. You ask me what is
Do you know what is the doctrine of necessity?
You have a government in place. Our country can't be vague.
We don't have a government in place.
We have a government in place. Which part we don't have a government in place? We have a government. We have a president, His Excellency. President. No, there were no declarations. There were no declarations.
Okay, go ahead.
We have a government in place.
And I'm saying that you're right.
My position is that His Excellency the President remains in office as we fix the system and we head to an election.
How long do you think that election will take?
You can do it with a compromise. You can do it. It is just that we have to have the will to do it.
Is the coalition prepared to accept, let's say that they declare, based on the figures that we have, what the recount has shown, that the People's Progressive Party is won? Is the coalition going to accept that?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of the coalition, but me as Ganesh Mahipaul, I'm not prepared to accept that.
Where does that leave the country?
I don't know how to answer where does it leave the country, but what I do know is that we need to fix the system.
Daniel,
Ganesh,
same question to you.
Just before Daniel comes in, to both of you, Article 177 of the Constitution is very clear. And I would ask your comment about it.
Read it for me, please.
Article 177 deems the head of a list that would have accumulated the most votes as president.
The head of the list? I don't think you're accurate there.
The presidential candidate of the list. What is your comment on that?
Well, I think it says valid votes.
Okay.
If you're going to read that part of the law, then we go back to the law. The only legal declarations would have been the 10 declarations that would have been declared earlier, and that means that according to those numbers, then it's David Arthur Granger, because he's the head of our list. No. If you're going to read the law, because there's no other declarations that were there for this recount process, right? GCOM hasn't pronounced on it as yet. So the only legal declarations before that is the 10 legal declarations from the region before, which deems David Arthur Granger still the president, because this process it's only at part 2 of 4.
And I think the law says the returning officers make the declaration in their region.
Yes.
After which the CEO would submit his report to the...
So you don't know the law?
So you can twist it and turn it as much as possible.
You're playing games now, man.
I'm not. I'm very serious here. Because this is the matter of our country.
We're here...
That is why let us discuss going forward and fixing it rather than to go back and talk about X, Y, and Z. Let's talk. I like what you said. I like what you said there. It is all about our country. So let's discuss moving forward.
Just said that let us take the Mingo's declaration if we want, because that was in his words.
On your question.
Hold on, man. He just said in his words,
my
those
words
were the
never
last
said,
legal declarations.
My words never said take the Mingo's declaration. My words said take the legal 10 declarations before. I didn't know Mingo got a declaration of his own. You are trying to put words in my mouth right now, you know.
Let's discuss
I don't put anything in your mouth,
Yog, I've noted you all afternoon, you know. You're treading in a certain direction, right? But it's not for me, right?
What
speak
direction am I treading on?
Right? You are trying to put us in a position to rattle us, to deal with issues that are bothering you.
Why do I want to rattle you?
But you must understand something, that the issues that came out of the recount process have direct issues with the Guyanese people and the transparency and credibility of these elections. So you can keep going back to Mingo. It sounds like you probably dream about him, right? But the thing is, I said yes because you read a law just now. You just read a piece of the law just now, and I quote, and from what you read, I told you what is the legal procedure to that. The only declarations that are legal are the 10 declarations before, and our party has the highest number of votes according to those 10 declarations.
Based on what you said, Yog.
So basically, David Arthur Granger is the president-elect, is deemed the president still. GCOM has not made it to say, if you're not educated in this process, it's 4 parts for the recount.
Mr. Granger, I have said publicly, you like it or not, he's squatting in office, and that's my position.
That's your opinion.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion.
That's what I'm saying,
Yes,
you're
you are
entitled
entitled to your opinion.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Daniel, you said that if we want to accept this, we need to go back and accept those declarations made.
No, I said according to the law that you read.
Let me finish my question.
According to the part of the law that you read.
Let me finish my question.
That is the
if GCOM comes out at the end of this process and declares APNU the winner of these elections, Are you going to accept it?
GCOM is the only body to say who won the elections or who am I, or who is. My president already said, whatever the GCOM commission says, the chairperson says, and whoever she declares, he will accept that.
And respect it too.
Mr. Mahipaul, you just said you're not going to accept a declaration made by GCOM.
I said that is my own personal opinion, because I do believe that the elections were fraudulent, and I myself, Ganesh Mahipaul, I am not prepared to accept it. And that's me, I'm speaking on behalf of myself for that. Because as a Guyanese, putting party aside, as a Guyanese, I believe that there is need for us to fix the system. I believe there should be no declaration. I believe that we should go back to the drawing board and fix the problem. That is me, Ganesh, not the coalition, Ganesh Mahipaul.
So will you go against the coalition?
How do you mean go against the coalition?
If your personal position is different from that of your party, will you go against it?
The democracy that my party enjoys is that I'm allowed to vent myself, we went in that direction already.
I think if you want to have a personal conversation with Mr. Mahipaul, you can do that off record. For the time being, we're speaking to the guy.
He said it's his personal opinion, not me.
Yes, but then you want to know more about it, so I'm saying now.
Of course, he is on air saying he differs from what you said, and I have a right to ask him about it. Are you trying to tell me I can't question him?
If you're going to go into it more, listen, we don't have much time on this program.
All I'm asking is that
I think we're wasting time.
All right, well, let me step in here as we come down to the wrapping up this segment here. I want to ask you, would you two gentlemen call for an investigation into what would have transpired the last couple of weeks, last couple of months at the GCOM? Would you endorse something like that?
To get to the bottom of it?
For the people of Guyana to bring closure, whether it is that Mingo did what...
It's necessary.
And
the recount would have validated that there is systemic fraud.
A separate commission of inquiry. Would you call for that?
Yes, if it's needed.
I wouldn't go against that.
Very good. Do you think the Guyanese people would have won from what has transpired here?
I think that the Guyanese people would have won on the basis that we had the recount. We found a series of anomalies, discrepancies, and problems in the ballot boxes, and I think we have won on the basis that we are now in a position where we are confident that there is need to revisit the system and fix it, and it's good for our country going forward.
Is the president, in your opinion, the president would have said that he would have recognized, he would accept whatever declarations that is made by GCOM chair? Would you say that this country, that the rest of the party, the coalition, is going to back the president in this?
The president is the leader of the party, and whatever he says, the coalition will back him with that.
Yog, two questions, and then we have Mr. Mahipaul and Daniel answer, maybe, and then they could have the closing statements on it.
Okay, so let's get to another factor. Do you gentlemen believe, or do you think, or what's your comment, do you think that there has been racial voting in these elections?
Yes, I would go ahead and say that. I can speak on this one personally, because I would have thought that in 2015 we would have dented voting along racial lines. But coming out of the recount procedure and even the first declarations that were made, you can see that people predominantly voted according to racial lines for the two major political parties. And this even was aided through the lack of votes that the smaller parties didn't even pick up during these elections.
Okay, Mr. Mahipaul, any comment?
Well, given the demographics of our country, and if I'm to speak from Region 3 perspective, I do believe that persons voted along the line of race.
Okay, because one of your other colleagues would have shared something on Facebook to say that he's making a hypothetical case. I believe he didn't use the word hypothetical. That's my word. To say that if one were to say that all the ballot boxes, and I think Mr. Lawrence said it on one of the interviews too, every single polling station and every ballot box would have been compromised. Does that translate into your agents around the field and around the country being compromised?
If each ballot box was compromised, that means, and this is second-hand information I'm getting right now because I have not been fed with this information from anybody. But if we had ballot boxes that were compromised, then everybody who would have had dealings with that ballot box would be indirectly compromised also, to an extent.
Okay.
And for me, on the basis of the recount process that I was a part of, the boxes that we would have picked up being problematic was recorded on the observation report, and there were boxes that we picked up, there were no discrepancies. So I'm not sure how to answer what you just asked.
Okay. I know Mr. Bond has a video saying that 80% of all the polling stations, 80% of your agents were compromised. Any comment?
I didn't see that comment. I will be glad if you could send it to me. You have my contact.
It's on my Facebook page.
I'll check it out.
Thank you. Any comment to that, Daniel?
Well, Mr. Bond would have said what he said based on his analyses, right? But we don't have any evidence to prove that our agents for 80% of the boxes were compromised in any way. As I said, once the boxes were compromised, then a small percentage of compromise goes to anyone who had dealings to that box until an investigation is completed. And I'll leave that statement there, because I'm not going to point fingers to persons that I don't know who would have had any direct dealings with those boxes. But you have boxes that have severe issues, all persons that would have had contact with that box are held accountable until a formal investigation can be conducted as to whatever happened in those boxes, and which we are waiting on currently.
But one would say that logically, if you have sent a list of names of about 600 to 700 persons, two lists rather, it means that all those polling stations that any of those names might have been associated with are compromised.
I don't quite understand that question,
If you sent a list to GCOM to say we have 600 names that we wish would warrant your attention for investigation, and those polling stations that those names would have come from, it means all of those polling stations are compromised.
Well, then yes. Once you find that you have issues in that ballot box, we don't know to the extent in what are the issues we can find there. I mean, yes, we did do a good job at the recount in going through them according to the gazetted order. But if you were to go more in depth with them, I'm sure you would find more information that we as the ordinary citizens would have overlooked.
And okay, Leonard, you restricted me to 2 questions, so that was.
And you took 4 there.
He did 4. Unbelievable, man. But I want to say, gentlemen, in closing, I just have one question to you. And you go first, Ganesh. Would you say would you encourage the Guyanese people, all Guyana, to accept the results of whatever GCOM would be saying next week?
Well, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency David Granger, has said umpteen times that he will be accepting whatever pronouncement is made by GCOM, and I will appeal to all Guyanese to do the same. If I may at the same time offer my closing remarks, I consider being a part of the recount team and being in the station for 33 days. I was assigned to Station 5. It started with tension. I can tell you it was really tense in there when we started. It was like if everybody was prepared to go after each other. But as we proceeded, friendships were built. But at the end of the day, electoral fraud was unearthed. And I must tell you, in my station, TCI, the Citizens Initiative, and URP, United Republican Party, I think, they agreed with what I'm saying here, because they even signed the observation report when the PPP and the other small, ANOG and PRP, when they refused to sign, the URP and TCI signed, because I guess they recognized that what we found were things that definitely bothered us. But I want to say that friendships were built, but electoral fraud was unearthed, and there is need for us as a country to move forward. We have done the recount. The recount showed us what is in the ballot box, and we need to fix our system for the benefit of not only you and I, but the future generation, so that they would not face such a problem going forward.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Ganesh Mahipaul. Daniel Seeram, same question to you, and in your closing comments, please.
Well, right now what we could say is that no matter whatever mixed views you had about the recount process, it came and it went, and it did the Guyanese people a good. It showed us all exactly what would have come out of those ballot boxes, each and every one of them. I would have sat along with my tabulation team and the remainder of tabulation agents from the remainder of parties and stakeholders, observers, and we would have listened to every single statement of recount along with every single observation report. It's damning to know, and quite concerning, that some of the things that were unearthed in those boxes some of them couldn't even be answered, Leonard. I remember for one ballot box you found ballot papers for Regions 5 and Region 2 in a Region 4 ballot box. I mean, how do you answer that question? Then you find a list belonging to another ballot box being found in one ballot box. So how really, these questions are questions that don't have answers.
Would you abide? Would you call on all Guyana to abide by the ruling of GCOM next week, the declarations rather?
Well, GCOM has a very responsible role right now. They're not only calling the results of Guyana, they're actually giving hope to the entire nation and telling them that whatever they're going to come out to, they're going to come to a transparent decision. But first, they need to address the issues of credibility. As I've kept saying...
But you put in conditions. I'm asking you whether
No, I'm willing to it, Leonard.
Yeah.
Right? Once they would have considered all of that, whatever decision they would have made, I would advise that taking into consideration everything being squared and the reports from the CEO, CARICOM, and the reports from CEO and CARICOM are taken, deliberated upon as necessary, yes, they should go ahead and accept those results.
Absolutely, dear. So there you would have had it, Mr. Daniel Seeram, Mr. Ganesh Mahipaul, and they are all representatives of the APNU+AFC coalition, and they would have been here for the last hour and a quarter to tell us about their views on elections, the recount, and the way forward. I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, and obviously we could all agree to disagree. It's all part of the discussion as we move this country forward. So thank you, gentlemen, and obviously the radio station is always here to all Guyana. This Kaicho radio station, that is 99.1, 99.5. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us, Larry.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being with us over the last, it's more than 1 3/4 hours. I know that it would have been a little long. We didn't cater for our guests, Ganesh Mahipaul, as well as Daniel Seeram, to be that long. However, it's a very interesting argument, raucous at times, but it is what it is. So I want to say thank you very much. Welcome to this special edition of COVID-19 Elections Watch. It's more than 100 days, 101 days since the March 2nd elections. And today we have with us back our landline that was done yesterday, 226-7453. In a very short while, we're going to be opening those lines, 226-7453. And of course, you could WhatsApp us. Do not call us on 6222222. WhatsApp us on that, your comments, and we're going to try to read them. Yesterday, there were many comments, and we tried to accommodate that. But I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Say hello to the people in New York and in Toronto and all across the Caribbean and in Guyana. I want to say thank you very much for joining us on this wonderful day. Of course, we're talking about elections. Let us bring you up to speed. What is happening there on Saturday? That's the last day in which the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, has to present a report to the Guyana Elections Commission for them to deliberate on, so they could make a declarations before Tuesday, June the 16th. At least that's what we understand based on the orders that we would have seen. Today, the U.S. Embassy would have issued an alert, security alert. They are saying they're warning their personnel in Guyana, their government workers in Guyana, the U.S. workers, to stay away from large crowds at this point in time if there's gathering of crowds. Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, has asked or he's called in the government or all parties rather, to pay attention, to adhere, to commit to accepting the results of the recount. And he's also saying, take your licks like a man. The U.S. Secretary of State also would have said yesterday for us to recognize the recount results. So I want to say good afternoon back again to my colleague, co-host, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. It's been a rapturous hour, so we want to go straight into the lines. Good afternoon, caller, you on the air? Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air?
Hello, good afternoon. Can I speak to Dr. Mr. Leonard, please?
Yes, Leonard is on the air. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm not on the air, right?
Yes, you are on the air. You are on the air.
I am on the air.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
I was listening to your program a while ago. I just take it off because I thought you hadn't cut it off. But I just take off my radio.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't know. I said I'm going to call into the station and let you know. It was a very serious conversation between the two coalition personnel. But there's only one thing that I don't like, the way how Dr. Yuk is trying to bully himself into the argument. He wasn't there at the culture center, to see the recount. I would like to hear openly, everything. But he keeps talking about Mingo. Mingo's story done. It's finished. Mingo had to go to court today. I think it was dismissed. Mingo case was dismissed. The PVP got to pay for, I think, $400,000 cost. And he must stop with that nonsense, man. Everything is Mingo. Why Dr. Yoke did not go to the Trunk Center and check the ballots himself? You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Leonard?
Yes, you.
He's bringing Kaicho News down. I used to buy.
Well, I'm not aware of that. But go ahead.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm one of the person used to buy Kaicho News.
And Yog Mahadeo has brought him down. Brought the newspaper down.
He's bringing down.
He has nothing to do with the newspaper, sir. So I'm not sure of the correlation.
No. What he said, and I could tell you what he said. He said about the papers. He said 35 persons show that they was in the country for election day.
Yes, sir.
Remember he said that?
The newspaper would
No,
have,
and
he
the
was referring to
newspaper.
the newspaper.
The
What the
person,
newspaper? Yes, sir.
the coalition man said, whoever he is, said if he was in the country, you can't listen to what the paper said, but if he was in the country, why didn't go to immigration? Or why y'all didn't publish, why the papers did not publish the passport? And the man is right.
Did you read the newspaper? You said you didn't read the newspaper. There was a
I
front
don't
page.
read Kaichur. I don't read Kaichur anymore.
All right. When
I
you're
don't
off
buy
air,
Kaichur anymore.
when you're off air, I'm gonna address that. Any other comment, sir?
No, I don't have a comment, another comment. But what I'm trying to let you know is that you have to talk to Dr. Yoka or whatever his name. You understand? You got to be more careful how you addressing your guests. You understand, sir?
Well, I thought it was an interesting discussion, and the gentleman.
It
well,
was, but
yes.
he break it up. It was from the two coalition personnel, but he spoiled everything.
I'm going to ask him to
Even-
respond. Of course, I'm going to ask him to respond because obviously I know that he would have a response to that. But I thank you. Any other comment, and I'd respond to you off
No,
here.
sir. No, I don't have. Well, what you want me to do? I gotta listen to what he's saying. Well, I got my phone on, so keep my phone on.
Well, if you want to be in the thing, so I'm going to ask him. But before he comes, you want to come on and let me deal with it.
No, let him go off here and we'll comment. Don't hold up the phone lines.
Right. So we're going to take it off here, sir. Thank you very much. The gentleman there, thank you very much for that call. Let me talk about Kaichur News. I could talk about that with some authority. Kaichur News would have reported based on a list that came out that went that was released by the police, and based on that list of persons that was supposedly were out of the country, people who said that they were those persons on the list came forward. A number of them, I think it's about 20-something of them, produced the passports. A number of them appeared in front of the Kaichur newspaper as well as inside. At least that's what I read. Based on what we would have seen there, the newspaper would have reported based on what those persons would have said. In fact, we were in this program a couple of days back, and people were calling Kaichur Radio to say that I think a couple of them even across the river to say, look, I know persons, my niece who was here, that she was in the country, she's not overseas. So we want to make it very clear with regards to that. Where the newspaper is concerned, the newspaper can only report what it knows based on what it sees, and it would have put that out there. I'm not sure what's the correlation of Yog Mahadeo bringing on Kaichur newspaper, because the radio has nothing to do with the newspaper in that sense. He has no connection with that. Over to you, Yog.
Should I even comment? Look, I believe when people refuse to awaken in the morning and see light, then they're forever going to be in the night. If you refuse to accept it's daytime, you are living in the night. I wish to say that I believe that people think they can come on a platform and they can share Kool-Aid, and everybody has to accept their views and take it gently, like the Jim Jones people, and die if they have to. I believe, and I have said openly, the goalposts have been shifted all the time from March 3rd to now by only one political party in this process, not by everybody. I have also said, and I maintain, that gentleman that called in just now, sir, you represent, I say this with respect to you, I don't know your age, I don't know you, but you represent the battles that this country has to face with people who are seeing truth and refuse to accept it. I say so very humbly to you, sir. Look, how can one ever hope to forget what Burnham did, or what Hoyt did, or what anybody did in Guyana's history? You cannot, and if you are doomed to repeating history if you want to forget them, if you don't want to learn from them. The truth is, the gentlemen refused to answer the questions. They were going all over the place. They were in a Don's Hall. And this is why I had to get off the camera for a little while, because they obviously came prepared to say something. And I wish to issue a public challenge to the same two to return, and I am going to accommodate them and Mr. Sanjeev Dattadin in room 592, or anybody else they want to bring, because this discussion needs to happen openly. Now, the third thing I'll say, Leonard, is that when we talk Mingo, it's like they have nightmares, because the same party would readily accept to be sworn in if GCOM says they win, but they will not accept anybody else winning these elections. So the truth is, APNU+AFC will only accept if APNU+AFC wins. Anything else, they're going to make some other problems with it. Anything else. They have been squatting in government since 2018. This country is bankrupt. We have no money. You did not allow me to ask Mr. Mahipaul and his cohort where they were being paid from, because if they're earning their salary and teachers and other people can't get their money, something is really wrong. But we know public servants who are not being paid. And this nationality and national passion is what I am interested in, not in political garbage, because it's the political garbage that has taken this country down. Look, people can cry all they want about whether not liking a result. The loser always cry, take your licks like a man. But these people are forgetting. They're forgetting. And this was the other question I had for them. If they stay in office another 3 years, if they go and say they're staying in office for another 3 years, will GCOM be ready is one, and two, will they win? Will they win in 3 years' time? You know, so some of these things are ridiculous. And Leonard, the next time you have any host to which I'm going to be muted, sir, I'm going to get off the program.
I thank you for that. And that is what we agree to disagree there. Yog, we would have been receiving several texts with regards to that. Obviously, people were very divided. Some of them were even angry at me, and that is okay. Sometimes you sit here and you're going to take blows from all sides. You got to be tough. Good afternoon, Leonard. I was listening to the program earlier. I must say I was very disappointed in the silencing of Mr. Datton, and I think if Kaiser News and other news agency want to report accurate news to the public, then we must allow every person to have their say so that the general public can decipher what is true and fair. For Mr. Mahipaul and Seeram to deny any other party their opportunity to speak in, it reflects very bad on the coalition. We live in a democracy, and everybody's freedom of speech is important. And so let me see if there's any others before we go back to the line. But I hope that that doesn't mean that I don't get any egg ball from you, Yog. Hi, I'm curious. What's the difference between the coalition and the government? Somebody's asking that. So there is...
Presently, there is none. You just invited paid public servants to come spew these things to the public. There is paramountcy of the party. The APNU+AFC, the PNC is running the government. That is very, very obvious. And those are the things we need to get answers for, Leonard.
Yes, I thank you for that.
In addition, I wish to say this. APNU+AFC agents, they're using NC and they're using taxpayers' money to peddle their side of the story. Nobody is being invited to go there to disagree with them. Are you? And would I be invited to face them on their own platform? No way. They're using taxpayers' money to put up shows all over this country. They're using taxpayers' money to do all of the things they're doing. And we, who are paying their salaries, we can't say and disagree with them. That is nonsense.
Yes. So we go to another call there. Call, good afternoon, you on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Leonard.
Good afternoon, sir.
I must congratulate Mr. Yog Mahadeo. That's a man that is putting his voice and his heart off to him. And I would like him to bring those same two guys on his 592 program with Mr. Datidin. Why were they afraid of Mr. Datidin if they are speaking the truth? Huh? You should have never asked them. You should have bring Mr. Datidin and that they confront them and let the truth come out to the guys. These people will know who's lying.
Go ahead.
You understand me? These people are creating problem in this country, and I want them to know this is not the 90s. Guyanese will not stand nonsense on the street. So if the police come on the street, we, the supporters that get rid of them, we will not stand it. We will retaliate and we will show them that the electorate of this country must stand. And we mean it. This is not 92. This is not 2001. This is 2020. It's a different breed of youth, a different breed of Guyanese out here. And we are suffering under this government. Only them is getting the hug of the happiness.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, sir?
And I call on Mr. Yog to bring those two back and get Mr. Datidin. And let's trash it out in room 592.
Yes, I think Yog has already indicated he's already thrown out the challenge for that.
Let's see if they come back down. And if they are back down, I wanted to call him out chicken on his program.
Yes. Any other comments, sir? Thank you very much, sir.
Hypocrites.
Thank you very much, sir. Yog, any comments on that? Yog, you there? I think we would have lost him, and I think he's wrong or he's lost. So there's another caller on the air. Good afternoon, caller, you on the air.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Kaieteur News?
Yes, you are.
Sir, I made it with sister what calling yesterday, and we went and we collect the hamper. I must thank you so much. And
That's okay, man.
Thank you to do your good work, and we need peace and justice. We vote for a government who can bring back our country, and we need peace. We don't need war. We don't need a caretaker government in Guyana. And I thank you so much. I am a senior citizen, age of 70, as I told you. And I thank you. And the money that I get in is just to pay the bills and whatever that I get. And I got a daughter is not older. She's in 41 years.
Thank you very much,
and I
ma'am.
need your help. If you could please kiss me again.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So Yog, you would have heard. I know. It is gonna always be an issue. How much leeway do you give? How much leg room do you give? And it's an issue. We have so many callers people who look at us every single day. Where do you draw the line? Where do you not draw the line? I want to hear from you, Yog. You and I having a conversation.
Look, Leonard, can you hear me? Because sorry, I had to switch to another device.
Yes, go ahead.
So here is my position. I am not opposed to Mr. Mahipaul and Mr. Seeram, I think his name. I'm not opposed to them coming on. Every party, every stakeholder has a right, a constitutional right to have their opinion and to ventilate those opinions. What I am opposed to is, if you have to answer a question, answer it. Don't go around the block and come back and go around and come back and it's never being answered and you're referring and deflecting to all kind of things. But then again, that is their right to deflect. They have a right. So I am not opposed to it at all. In fact, I welcome it. And I believe this is how we all get to appreciate each other's opinion. At the end of the day, there must be no hard feelings. We have a right to say and to feel what we want. But my concern, Leonard, and I say this again and again, as a people, are we ready to move forward? If you are saying you will only accept an APNU+AFC declaration that swears in Granger, something is wrong. And that is showing that one set of persons are never going to accept any other outcome, whether it means stealing, thieving, robbing, whatever it is. Every single abracadabra will be done to ensure that only what they want they get. And we can't have that. We have to have openness.
Absolutely, and you know, somebody is saying, they're saying, "Good afternoon, Dr. Yog. Don't bother with the fools. You're an amazing man. Keep the good work. Continue." Are you running for the presidency, Mr. Yog? I gotta ask you this. I think Yog went very silent. There's a call online. Let's go ahead straight to the call. Good afternoon, caller. Good day. How are you doing?
Hi, good day.
Good day, sir.
Yog,
Yes, Yog, I think is here. He's here.
Yog and
Yes, so this is Gildarie. I think Yog is here. We're having some issues here. Go ahead, sir.
I will quickly. That it in. I like that it in etc. Right? But the fact about this country is that black people don't trust the system. But the system is not to be blamed upon the PPP end. The system is to blame upon the black leaders. And
no, sir. Let's don't go down that way, man.
All right, good. But listen, I hear you keep making a noise about the $9 billion, right? I'm speaking in a neutral group, right? Now, the $9 billion is asked, Ambassador. Why didn't ask back to the $9 billion for the $15 million that they give to Flip Motilal? Now, prior to the $15 million gift to Flip Motilal, there is some things that definitely need to be straightened, and I want you to put the energy into this. We're pushing for constitutional change. This is what could bring about. You see, if we had constitutional change, we would have never been in this stupidness. Because of that, it said, the public don't know is it that gazetted. Compared to they don't know what gazetted. This is the fact. The law is the law, as that they didn't keep saying. Now you see the champion in what stands is the count. Compared to the count, why is it now you're going to send the nation to wait on a count? When we're waiting on a count and there's a big flunks about what gazetted. What finished gazetted now you're hearing that there's not the law. What's the law? Is the number stand. Asking for some trouble, I'm prior to asking for trouble, we need the energy to get constitutional changes. I see something in the newspaper who said one of the leaders said that this thing is just a fire now. But when they get into office, this fire don't boil anymore. It is quiet down, but they would be pushing for constitutional changes. I want because I like the energy. I respect you as a citizen. I respect the ground and etc. But I want wholly accountable as a citizen of Guyana. And like the other day here, he was saying that he voiced the opinion upon the paper. He said, well, Guyanese got a right to buy which papers they want, but he solid. I can't remember which right, but he said that he's solid. And I can't go through the right, but what we're saying is that in a position that he could stand, and I need him to stand with the energy, pushing for constitutional change. Because indeed, we need to move away from this dark cloud. Every 5 years is the election. We can't move freely. They just had a recount. You still see the place in a kind of standstill. We need to move and what could move it as that it said. Some things can't be done until the parliament open, get mobilized back, or when it gets mobilized, we move into constitution. Barack Obama said it in his homeland. You know, he said, when you're dealing with democracy, the only way you could deal with it is by selecting the right government. Before you could sit down and discuss, any two government discussion with him. So I hold an answer, yes, selecting the right government. But we need, and tell you, when you're shouting about this $9 billion, we need back the $15 million we give to Flip Motilal and the fiber optic cable that was given to rename son and it didn't come true. Be careful about shouting that didn't have to step in when he father-in-law had the $69 billion with name when he father-in-law get knocked off his chopping it.
Man, don't go down that road, man. What are we doing?
But anyway, that's my opinion, and I want Mr. Yog push the constitutional changes. This is why I'm interested in seeing Dr. Yog energy in. I like his spirit. You must understand I like his spirit.
Thank you very much, dear sir. I don't know if you want to answer any of that, Yog.
I want to say something. The caller has a very good point. Leonard, I am on record speaking out against the contract with Mr. Motilal. Right or wrong, I am on record speaking out against it. I took a lot of blows from the then government speaking out against that contract.
I took blows speaking out against Marriott. I took blows right through. And you know what? I must say, and I say so openly, I opposed a lot of the things that I did not agree with. I opposed cronyism. I did not oppose it for these people to go in and do the same nonsense. That's not what Guyana wants. And the call is absolutely right. We must have constitutional reform. We must have politicians who are respectful and who are accountable and transparent. And the best we can get is when you call a politician and you say, sir, there is corruption, or there is this problem, or they must not say, bring me the evidence. They must take action. They must pay heed to what the people of this country say. The problem we have in this country, Leonard, is politicians, as soon as they get in power, they think they are gods. And so everybody else becomes a servant. That has to change at every stage of the way. And I'm going to call it President-elect Ali. I am going to tell him he needs to know he will be the chief public servant to listen and to follow the will of the people. And we got to keep reminding him. And I like the caller. Yes, sir. We will continue to do what we can do to ensure that there is good change in this country.
Absolutely, and I think he's spot on. That's ensuring that we keep the pressure on and the feet to the fire. So there's another caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Yes, Mr. Leonard. I was the two previous caller.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I forget to mention this. The previous caller before me said that Yog is bringing down Kaicho News. I want your boss to know this, Mr. Glenlan. I think because of Yog, Kaicho News has improved. And I could say this because previously, before Yog and Kaicho Radio was on, I could have get Kaicho papers to buy 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the day. Now at 9 o'clock, I get a place I got, I just buy paper for. I can't get the Kaicho News. And he don't know what he's saying. Since his government going power, you can see he's an APNU man. He buying the Chronicle. So that's why he don't know about if Kaicho News is on top. And I must praise Mr. Yog Mahadeo and you for Kaicho News. I think Kaicho News has benefited a lot from Mr. Yog. And I want him to keep up his work and keep up his 592 program. It's very, very good.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, sir?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. And Yoga, I think the caller has raised a very good point there. I think immediately after the show, I'm going to Glen Lyle. If he's doing so well with this newspaper, I haven't received the raise for a long time. And so...
Well, you try there. I wish, as we say in Creoles, you try there, because I want everybody to know Yoga is doing this voluntarily.
No, it isn't the truth. For the last it's been what, 3 months now. I think we lost time. But let me tell you this: it has been such a warm time.
My lovely wife Anita is putting bread on my table.
The ladies always take charge. But let me tell you this, it's been so warm. I really feel good over especially the last 2-3 weeks. We would have been meeting some people who would have been with us day in, day out. Room 592 has taken a life of its own to bring the people the real analytical thing, to getting down to the nitty-gritty. And the people have stuck with us. They have blowed us. They have loved us. It's been everything. But guess what? I think at the end of the day, what you're seeing is a love for people, for this particular country. People becoming very vibrant, people becoming very much alive as to what this country needs. And guess what? It could only improve this country, Yoga. And so that is a very good thing that has emerged, in addition to the leaders, the young leaders that we see would have been coming out from these elections. The other thing is the awakening of the people. There's a energy that is there that I haven't seen, and maybe I wasn't paying attention too much to that over the years. But what we see now is an awakening of the people, Yoga, and that is something that I'm excited about. I want to see where we are going to go from here when all this is going to settle, because it will have to settle. The people are demanding it. We are going to see a people that has been energized by not wanting to have a repeat. I'm not sure if you're thinking the same thing.
Correct. But Leonard, critically, for a better Guyana, we have to accept criticisms. Let me say this, and to all our viewers and listeners out there, I wish to apologize publicly. I did not believe that I lost my cool for a couple seconds, so I apologize to that and to my co-host, and that's coming from my own heart. I'm normally very cool with these things, even though I'm passionate about them. I don't allow myself to get angry. But Leonard, look, here is another fact. However the politicians want to spin it, they can. Guyana is on the verge of bankruptcy as we speak. Yet, Leonard, ministers are driving their fancy vehicles up and down these roads. Politicians are running a health emergency task force. IPAS is happening every day, and we have to point it out. Now, is this country bankrupt? As you know, Leonard, you and I are going to have an intense discussion tonight in room 592 with that question, is Guyana bankrupt? And that we have to alert and bring certain things. Look, Leonard, the truth will have to come out. The PPP has done a lot of good, and they have done bad. And we pointed all the bad out. APNU+AFC has done good, and they have done bad. But oh man, you get licks, take your licks. Be a man.
Be a man.
The problem we have, Leonard, is that you are facing a state of bankruptcy. What APNU+AFC wants is for them to be sworn in so that the money from overseas could be released. For them to spend that out too. And we can't allow that. You have to be look, I heard President-elect Ali says they're not going to do witch hunt. I hope, for God's sake. I don't want witch hunt, but I hope those who have stolen must face the court. And if the government doesn't do it, I want every viewer and listener to know you have every right as a citizen of this country to take any politician to court. The court is open to everybody. That is our constitutional right. And if President-elect Ali does not, he deems it as witch hunt. I mean, I'm saying so respectfully, I haven't asked him myself. I'm certainly hoping, and I must say this to you, Leonard, President-elect Ali will be joining us on room 592. Will be joining us in room 592 tomorrow night.
Interesting. Looking forward to that one.
And that is where we're going to have an open discussion with him and how he plans to run the country from his perspective. But Leonard, what are we handing to the next government? How much money in the kitty? Do we have any? Those are the answers we will seek tonight. Finally, sorry for the long spiel, but you know you muted me before, so you got to give me my space now. But here is what. Leonard, let's come to Gaisuku. How many people in this country knew or know now that Gaisuku's bankruptcy is not because of what happened 20 years and 10 years ago? They've been joking the books. They have been joking the books over the past 3 to 4 years. And all of that needs to be brought to the public. And if that evidence comes out from examining their books, we got to take action against all those who are responsible. Because today, my brothers and my sisters have to go home because Gaisuku is bankrupt. Who made it bankrupt?
Good question, and that is something that we would have to continue. I think the Ministry of Finance would have issued a statement yesterday. We could raise that issue today. They said that we have no money in the kitty jar to bankroll Gaisuku at this point in time, and that's an issue that I have an issue that you continuously making losses while the PPP, Progressive Party, Civic, they would have said that, look, if you close this entire industry, it's not only about the workers. There's a whole bunch of other services that's going to be affected, and then of course the taxes. And yes, it's making losses, but it brings in a whole chunk of foreign exchange. You pay GRA, you pay NIS. there's drainage and irrigation services that it's offered, there's dispensaries in particular areas, and there's other spin-offs like markets and so on. So you just don't close an entire estate and just think that there's not going to be any repercussion. However, I want to agree.
Leonard.
Yes.
Leonard, sorry to interject. Let me show you one of the litmus tests, one very, very keen test you can put to evaluate the politicians in this country. For the past 54 years, well, not going to go so far. Let's go to for the past 10 years. For the past 10 years, the politicians in this country knew on both sides of the divide. They knew they were breaking the law by being dual citizens and sitting in the National Assembly. It is I, Yog Mahadeo, one and a half years ago or 2 years ago, when Mr. Ganesh was being made to act Prime Minister, I wrote a letter to the public and said that is the greatest travesty of justice to have a foreigner act as Prime Minister in this country. That's the kind of history this country has. And you know what? If you go to with Mr. Mahipaul and his companion, or you go to any politician, they will say, leave the past where it belongs. If you forget the past, you will be doomed to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it, of course. And so this evening, what is happening in room 592? Who are the guests, Yog?
Well, tonight in room 592, we're going to have the financial analyst, Mr. Ramesh Prasad. We're going to have Mr. Dhanraj Singh, who is part of the Guyana Budget and Policy Institute. And we're going to have yourself and Mr. Ruel Johnson joining us to ask them the hard questions. We're not going to, look, in room 592, I don't think we have ever allowed anybody to feed us with whatever they want. We have been asking the hard questions. And tonight, it's either we leave tonight convinced that Guyana is bankrupt, or we will leave it convinced that there is hope. But certainly, we will leave it convinced of what is the current financial position of this country.
Absolutely, dear Yog, and I want to thank you very much for being such a patient and forgiving co-host. I also want to say I apologize to our viewers, our listeners, that we did not open our lines a little longer, and we sadly out of time. I think we could take one call, maybe one quick call. Yes, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Leonard.
Good afternoon, sir.
You know, first of all, I would like to say the program is COVID and election watch, but for the past few days, as much as COVID is important, we're not spending enough time on COVID.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now, to the first caller, I'm going to tell you this. I'm 45 years old and I'm living in Guyana. And if I cannot get a Kaicho newspaper, I will go online and read it. And I know before 2015, the coalition take the government, the Kaicho News was very, very critical of the PPP to the state that I know for a fact PPP supporter wouldn't even buy Kaicho newspaper because of the things they will expose. Because there was corruption then and there is corruption now. And I know they will also might always be corruption. But what I'm trying to say, Kaicho News is always balanced. You understand? So that caller needs to get his facts right. Another thing I hear you mention about Mingo case was dismissed. It wasn't dismissed. It was actually withdrawn. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, as we heard, Mr. Datarin wanted to enter into this discussion this afternoon, and to see Mr. Mahipaul and the other guy to decline him from entering, I think they just proven their caliber, right? So don't want him there. But I would say this, the future for this guy, showing you this same COVID-19, I think it's just around more on COVID. And if we don't fight up to bring this guy and have them running around in circles, we had how much days of this? All of them who coming here, they don't want to answer the question. They're always running around. Let me get some people here now. Let me deal with what's going to happen maybe the 16 if it don't happen before the 16. Let me deal with appealing to the Guyanese people to accept whatsoever GCOMs bring out. Let me deal with people who are going to preach peace. Let me get some people like them on this way. We don't want these APNU people to come here and don't want to accept the fact, still trying to prove a lie. We cannot accept this now. The most important thing right now is to be safe. We still have to take COVID serious, and we also have to get Guyanese people to accept what's happening. Let me bring the people together. We got to live. We got to move on. We heard Mr. Mahipaul. He said something very, very well. I appreciate that when this recount started, the first day and the first couple of days, there was a lot of animosity there. But during this process, we become friends. Let me use that as an example. If we work together and we spend time together, I think we're gonna find a way to run this country together and live together in harmony in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear. Very warm words from a good citizen of Guyana, solid citizen, Yog. In closing, I don't know if you maybe want to comment on what he would have said with regards to Kaichor newspaper. Mr. Glendale would tell you as our publisher that he's not too bothered. Who wants to stop buying it, buying it. As far as he's concerned and the staffers are concerned at Kaichor News, we will continue to carry out our mandate, and that is to the people of Guyana. We have one mandate, and that is to report it and report it as it is. And nothing will change for that, whether it's a APNU, whether it is a PPP, whether it's ANOC, whoever's in government, we are going to continue doing our job. As long as I'm there, we're going to do our job. Yog, in closing, maybe respond to that.
Leonard, in closing, I want to say, yes, that call is right. We need to find a means of reconciling and working together. However, sir, I also have the position that, sometimes if a dog bites me, I'm going to run away far from that yard. I'm going to stay far away. I'm not going to go back here. But Leonard, I want to just say this very quickly. We have had discussions in this program, and I believe every time you raise this SOP with APNU+AFC, they've swore that they won the elections on SOPs. They don't want to talk about it. Every time you raise Mingo, they don't want to talk about it. Every time you raise the infractions that they are so guilty on, they don't want to, they said, forget the past. Well, gentlemen, we cannot do that. We have to assess everything and move ahead. And I like what the caller said. We can find a way to work together, but you have to own up. You have to own up to the past. You have to own up to where you are wrong, say, I'm wrong, and let us move on. Here we have a situation where nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Even if this country is going to fall over a precipice, still, these guys are saying, either you swear us in or it's flawed. Either you swear us in or it's unacceptable. Over.
Thank you very much, dear. My co-host, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, myself, Leonard Gildarie. Thank you for joining us on the Elections COVID-19 Watch. It has been two very interesting days, room 592, and then now Elections COVID-19 Watch. Big debate going on issues regarding our people, the way forward, and elections 2020. This evening we're going to be back with you 7:30 sharp. Dr. Yog Mahadeo is going to be leading the debate on the economy, among other things, and the finances of this country. And myself is going to be there 7:30 p.m. sharp, Kaichor Radio 99.1, 99.5. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and thank you for listening to us all across this country, wherever you would have been joining us from. Have a pleasant rest of the afternoon.